Notes 066 479 8056. We welcome your comments on any of the interviews that we bring you. You can also go to sabcnews.com or find us on Facebook. Bongani.
Thank you, Francis. Now, on Monday, the ANC issued a statement in which it said it would not be giving running commentary on the ongoing testimony being revealed in the commission into state capture. The party says it, in fact, was the champion that initiated the setting up of the commission and therefore wants to leave it to conclude its work. It also insists it is not on trial at the commission, and yet, of course, as the weeks have gone by, there's been a growing list of several senior leaders in the party who appear to have been implicated in state capture. The ANC has raised media speculation and analysis about who knew what, when they knew it, and how extensive the network of enablers may have been within the governing party. Yesterday, Zizi Kodwa, the head of the presidency at Luthuli House, tweeted that members of the media should refrain from running a parallel trial and let the commission do its work. Well, he joins us now in the studio. There is the tweet on your screen that prompted this discussion. He joins us now, as I say, in the studio. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
And thank you for your time. Before we get to the contentious tweet, firstly, I do need to get your reaction on that K-word slur from KZN today. What's the ANC's position on this?
I think if we are to be seen to be fighting racist and racism, we must hit one to teach others, regardless of their mental state. As we read lately the statement from the family claiming that is not well. We think such people don't belong in society. We appreciate the fact that the number of people like him, Casey, are already serving some time in jail, and that is where he belongs. If indeed he did this because he wanted to get attention, he must get that attention, and that attention must get it in jail, like tomorrow. We're happy that police are already acting, looking for him, and he will get that attention. There is no place for racist who use derogatory words to describe others in South Africa. Whether being the president or being Zizi or being Bongani, we want the law to take its course. And we want, among others, that our judiciary must send another message by sending him to jail.
This is just completely not acceptable because, of course, it does do a lot of harm to the social cohesion project, does it not?
Absolutely, but also it does play to this notion that we generalize. I mean, when we deal with such cases, we must deal with incident, we must deal with an individual. We must not deal generally with a community where he comes from and so on. That's why it's important that regardless of his mental state, whether he's delusional or not, the man belongs in jail. And I think the sooner police making sure that they investigate, arrest him and send him to jail, the better.
All right, we'll leave it at that on that one. Now back to the contentious issue. The tweet that you sent out yesterday, we put it on screen a little earlier on. And the first thing I would put to you, and there it is, you're saying media and analysts should avoid running a parallel public trial based on the testimony of witnesses at the State Capture Commission. We must act in a responsible manner and allow the judge to do his job. I would put it to you that, of course, it's entirely your right as a party not to give a running commentary, as you have said. But you surely aren't telling the media and analysts to shut up, are you?
No, not at all. I mean, you know that among other rights we've fought for and will continue is a right for me to defend what you believe in. I will do so. Not only as a media, but like any individual who may disagree with me. I must defend your right to express what you disagree and your views. But the point we're making is that we must not allow inference judgments on the basis of a testimony of a witness. For an example, if somebody makes a judgment or makes a testimony to suggest that certain people were in a meeting or certain people gave him a call and so on, as we have done, it does undermine, because at the end of the day, the only person in terms of the commission who must make findings and make recommendations is the judge himself. There's one thing to do what is called contextual analysis or contextual story, why certain meetings were held. That is one thing. But it's another to make inference judgments or ready to suggest that certain people are guilty. We are taking away and undermine the role of the judge, who at the end of the commission must then make what is called a recommendation and findings of the commission based on and the testimony of witnesses.
You could argue, though, that you're stating the obvious. I mean, of course the Commission is going to do its work. In fact, if anything, if you're saying that Justice Zondo could possibly be influenced by public commentary, I mean, surely that's an insult to him. He's only going to decide what he decides based on what's on the record.
It's not on the tweet that I'm suggesting that he will be influenced. But what I'm saying is that we must allow the Commission to do its work.
The point is the Commission will do its work. What we say, what you and I say, is not going to influence the Commission unless we say it there.
The danger of running a commentary, almost like making what I refer to a parallel, a public trial. Already on the basis of a witness, on the testimony of a witness, somebody is found guilty in the court of public opinion. It takes away the responsibility of a judge, ultimately at the end. Because we must understand, we must protect the integrity and the credibility of this commission. We must accept and welcome the fact that a number of people have now come out to say they want to come to the commission to give testimony to help the commission to achieve the objectives of the terms of reference. It's not their intention that on the basis of their testimony, at the end of the day, there must be headlines that they've said somebody is guilty, but it's to help the commission. What may happen is that those people may just take a decision that to an extent that there's a parallel public trial and inference to judgments, they may withdraw their availability, and therefore it may deny us an opportunity to get to the bottom of the allegations that the Commission is probing of state capture.
With respect, Zizi, from everything that we've been hearing at the Commission, in fact, the opposite seems to be the trend. What's really happening here, people will say, is that the ANC is beginning to feel the heat.
No, the ANC is not feeling the heat. The ANC, that's why we made a call that all South Africans, including members of the ANC, be they leaders of the ANC, current and the past, that the information they have, they must come before the Commission. And it is the ANC that, among others, the ANC has appeared before many commissions. For example, I can cite one. The ANC appeared before the TRC Commission to explain its role in the liberation struggle of this country. Voluntarily. It was not invited because of the witnesses that appeared.
The National Party, I mean, that's common cause.
The point I make is that the ANC as an organization, even its leaders, as they continue to be named, the ANC may decide at a time given point that it will come as an organization. It will do so. It will not run away. But leaders of the ANC, we have made a call to them. They've got a responsibility. Yeah. Given their responsibility, whether in government or elsewhere, their names will come time to time. For example, the name of Gwede as the Secretary General of the ANC. By virtue of the Secretary of being the former Secretary General, there's a lot of...
His name is not just coming up randomly. It is said he was part of pressurizing the banks, no less, to reveal confidential information about their clients. I mean, those are very serious allegations.
The point we make again, at what point will the ANC must discuss its approach to the Commission, including some of the misinformation that has been presented. For example, the issue about what we thought was a collusion of banks is a coincidence that suddenly all of them, they closed banks of a certain client. And
therefore that entitled the party to summon them to Luthuli House to explain themselves? Is that what you're saying?
That followed a coalition of construction companies.
Hold on. Are you saying that the perception that you thought the banks were acting in concert, did that entitle the ANC to summon them to Luthuli House to come and explain themselves?
It will help to listen, because it followed a coalition of construction companies which we're dealing with. And therefore, Gwede, the point I'm making, as a former Secretary of the General, by virtue of this position, was able to call so many meetings. The issue was never to discuss a client relation with any bank, was to understand, including the regulatory framework. And many of the witnesses from the banks, including the one of today, explained that this was the question we asked, what is the regulatory framework? And that we were happy at the end.
He didn't know that? He didn't understand what the law says about what banks can and cannot do?
It's not about that. It's about what is before the Commission. It's not about the general knowledge.
But again,
what is before the Commission?
But again, Zizi, I'm putting to you the question. You're saying because that was the impression, based on what was happening in other sectors, the ANC had at the time. So I'm going to ask you the question now for the third time, and I did listen. Are you saying that because the ANC perceived the banks may have been acting in concert, it then entitled them, including Gwede Mantashe, to summon them to Luthuli House to come and explain themselves? Is that what you are saying?
The point I'm making, if you're to listen, not to listen to yourself, you'll care what the ANC meant when everybody wants to say, at the end of the day, the ANC must discuss an approach. On the basis of being the governing party, certain leaders of the ANC, you'll continue. We're only the 4th week since the start of the commission. We're in of 2 years. There are many names of ANC leaders that are going to come out. We're aware of that. The ANC must discuss an approach, and it will discuss that approach to the ANC. Should we voluntarily go and make a submission to the Commission? Because, among others, we're a governing party, but secondly, there are certain leaders of the ANC to explain their actions, or do we allow them, like some of them they've already indicated, to go and make submissions individually on the basis of their actions, given the portfolios that they held? It's a decision that the ANC must make. It's not for us as the ANC, like we said. We're not going to run a parallel running commentary to say this testimony was false or wrong. There are certain things already we can pick up from the meetings we've had, that there's a possibility that if time allows, we must go back as the ANC and say, indeed, this meeting was held, and this information which was presented to the Commission is incorrect.
Let me ask you another way. Perhaps you'll answer it better this time. Johan Burger told us yesterday that in 32 years of his experience in the banking sector, the kind of meetings that your party was asking for was something quite unprecedented. What was the motive behind those?
There's nothing wrong to invite, including the banks. The Secretary General of the ANC, I would imagine even the current Secretary General, we met with mining companies, for an example. Mining companies, when they announced their intention, these are private-owned companies, their intention to retrench thousands of workers. As a governing party, we needed to clarify ourselves, not because we will stay to say to those companies to not retrench, but to understand, are there any other issues that as a governing party we need to be aware of? Because as a governing party, among others, we've got a responsibility to understand what's going on in the country. So there are no holy cows. The African National Congress will convene, will call anybody, like any governing party. Whether it's the ANC today, like any governing party that is responsible, it will convene anybody that is concerned about certain decisions and actions of those individuals.
So what's the ANC's response then to the evidence that's emerged so far, where we are hearing leaders of banks in this country saying they felt pressurized by the party to intervene in the Gupta matters?
The ANC will decide at an appropriate time whether indeed should it respond to some of the issues that are being raised. The point I'm making, we're only on the 4th week of the Commission. The Commission will sit for the next 2 years. At what point does the ANC as an organization come and present in the governing party? To what an extent some of the issues that are presented, there are certain issues that are going to come as well about the ANC's leadership. So that issue of the ANC in appropriate time, it will come. We're not going to run again, running commentary on the basis of one testimony of a witness to say that witness is right or wrong. Because even that testimony is not because been examined, it's not been tested. That's why we say to make inference of judgments is to undermine what the judge is expected to do on the basis of the testimony that is presented before him.
You may claim that your party is not on trial here, and obviously, in a sense, you are quite correct. This is just an inquiry. That's not its purpose. But as I've said earlier, that with each witness that's come forward, more ANC leaders seem to have been implicated. What's also been interesting is that some of those who are giving that evidence are very loyal members of the party. What about those comrades who've come forward and have given testimony of how they, frankly, were let down by the party?
We appreciate those who came before, who are very senior leaders of the ANC in their capacities. What it shows is that they've listened to our call. We've made a call that regardless of your height and weight in the African National Congress, you must go before the Commission and help the Commission to get to the bottom of the serious allegations. We appreciate and welcome their voluntary intervention. We want more of the ANC leaders, because of the position they would have held, whether in private sector or not, they must come and help this Commission because these allegations are quite serious. It does not suggest that the African National Congress, like you correctly for the first time we agree, that the ANC is not on trial. The fact that they would have implicated a member of the ANC does not mean they acted on the instruction of the ANC. They must explain their own actions. To an extent that the ANC later, to go back to my point, may decide as an organization, like it did with the TRC, to go before the Commission and explain its role as a governing party in the context of the work of the Commission.
It does also, though, raise the question, if we're seeing people like Gwede Mantashe, for example, being implicated in the way that we've heard, it does also raise the question of what the president knew, based not only in terms of his influence in the party at the time, yes, he was deputy president then, but certainly in terms of his role in business. I mean, you cannot tell us that he wasn't aware that both within the party and within the business sector at large, people were being pressured in the way that we have heard? How could he not have known?
I think it will be helpful of you to appear before the commission because you seem to know more than we know. To an extent that the president knew certain things. I think it's information that what you just said.
We've heard from the commission, the Secretary General was meeting with, I mean, how would he not have known about that, for example? If the Secretary General is summoning people to Luthuli House to come and explain themselves in that way, how could he not have known as the Deputy President of the party?
The point we make, again, is a danger of running parallel and public trials on the basis of a testimony untested by a witness. You already made certain conclusions. It undermines the commission. The point we make. It seems like you can be helpful also to say, based on the generality of the information provided so far in 4 weeks, we think that certain individuals, including the sitting president, the incumbent, has information to provide. That you can do and go to the commission, not to use this platform. But what this platform must do, you can do what I call contextual issues, try to analyze, but let's not make what I call inference judgments on the basis of the testimony of witnesses.
We heard today from the expert witness, Dr. Daniel Kaufman, around what should be the tenure in terms of dealing with these allegations that we've heard from the commission. The idea that whether it's a politician or a senior official in government, the idea of saying, do you know what might happen to me if I did X, Y, and Z? There are those who would put it to you that in fact the ANC has created a culture in which the very opposite of that takes place.
I think, again, that is your analysis. From at least objectively, and as a matter of fact, those who appeared before the commission from all the banks, that does not come out. That they've been pressurized, except to say they were engaged in certain issues they've asked. At the end of the day, the ANC appreciated and welcomed their explanation.
Mike Brown said he was pressurized by the former minister, Mosebenzi Zwane. He said that today.
Absolutely. I now understand where you're coming from. Because initially we were talking about meetings at the Luthuli House, the IMC and people who were in the IMC, as and when themselves they see being implicated and appropriate, they will come and explain why certain meetings were held and whether there was any legislation that governed the intervention of the executive, issues that are being raised. The point we're making is, again, to make inferences that may create already certain people are guilty without even giving an opportunity to those people. The judge and the commission may decide to an extent that there's a weighty on those allegations. Certain people must come and appear. But however, we encourage all of them, whether they were former ministers and so on, they shouldn't wait that long. There's a commission, there's an opportunity, including the media. Media has played an important part to give these exposés. They must be courageous and be bold enough, of course, to be protected in terms of their sources. They must be courageous and go to the commission for the sake of this country to get to the bottom of these allegations.
The fact is you can't have your cake and eat it, Zizi. Whilst we appreciate the fact that this commission is now underway, if all the allegations that we are hearing are what they are, the ANC is the party that's going to stand to face the most heat on this.
There's no cake. There's no point to eat any cake because the ANC is not on trial. What is on trial are serious allegations of state capture. Some of the issues that have been raised prior have got nothing to do with the ANC, have got nothing to do, including with member or members of the ANC, about certain meetings, about certain things that happen in government.
So ministers who are part of the ANC, we should see them in a different capacity in terms of how they act in these ways? In
the context of the commission, that's why we make a call. Individuals implicated, individuals not implicated, we think that they've got information that can help the commission to achieve its terms of reference and objectives, they must do so. Whether they are members of the ANC, and we make that call because we support the work of the commission. We don't want to undermine the work at the end, which must be done by the judge, by actually doing what we are doing, running a parallel trial.
All right, let's agree on something else, perhaps as we leave this conversation. To be clear, as much as the ANC can claim to have championed this commission of inquiry, it was the central part of the remedial action recommended by the former public protector. Can we agree at least that that's where the genesis of this comes from?
Even before that, I can tell you that in the discussions, sitting in the National Executive Committee, the Communist Party, for an example, among others, has been raising the issue of the corporate capture of state as a first concept, even before we talk about state capture. Years back, the Communist Party had raised the issue about corporate capture, where individuals...
But we are here because of Thuli Madonsela. Can we at least agree on that? That's all I'm saying.
I'm just saying, I'm giving you the genesis. And I'm educating you that it did not start there. It started with the Communist Party, with, among others, even before the investigation of Nkandla, the Communist Party talked about the corrupt capture of state, that there are certain individuals who want to do and who are doing work on the basis on behalf of certain corporates. And that's what the issue and the concept of state capture came. Yes. That's why even the judge must investigate, is probing whether indeed there was or there is a state capture. Right. And of course, the probe by the public protector was, among others, at the center of the allegations of state capture. Right. That's why the notion of state capture not only must it be attributed to the ANC, there are a number of bodies, NGOs, that have made this call, including the media, that we need an investigation. Sure. Now, the investigation is here. Let's all make sure this investigation succeeds, and let's make sure that we maintain and restore the credibility of the process by providing the necessary information.
Who coined the phrase, it doesn't matter? We are here now, and indeed, I think I will agree with you that we will need the Commission to conclude its work. But of course, a lot is at stake here. There will be commentary, there will be analysis. Thank you very much for joining us. That was the ANC's head of the presidency, Zizi Kodwa. Do send us your comments, by the way. #FullView on Twitter. We do want your 30-second voice notes and of course your video recordings. Our WhatsApp line, there's the number on your screen, 066 479 8056. And of course you can view any of our interviews or features by going to sabcnews.com, and you'll find us on Facebook as well.